Hello everyone and welcome to Lecture for Sleep. Tonight we're dimming the lights and journeying back in time to a tale that is whispered through the centuries. It's a story of love, loss, and a promise that even death could not break. Settle in, get comfortable, and let my voice guide you into a world of long ago. Our story begins in a quiet, mist-shrouded village nestled at the foot of an old mountain. The air here was always cool, smelling of damp earth and pine. In this village lived a young woman named Elara. She was known not just for her kindness, but for her voice, a voice so beautiful it was said the birds would hush their own songs to listen when she sang. Elara was in love with a young woodcutter named Liam. He was strong and gentle, with eyes the color of the forest floor after a fresh rain. Their love was the kind you read about in old books, pure and deep, a gentle melody in the quiet rhythm of village life. Liam would spend his days in the woods, his axe echoing through the trees, while Elara would tend to her garden, her songs weaving through the blossoms. In the evenings, they would meet by an ancient willow tree at the edge of the woods. Its long, graceful branches created a secluded world just for them. It was under this tree that Liam asked Elara to be his wife. He didn't have a ring of gold or silver. Instead, he presented her with a small, smooth river stone, polished by the water over countless years. He promised her that just as the river was constant, so was his love. Elara accepted, her heart so full of joy, it felt like it might sing on its own. They planned to marry when the first snow of winter touched the mountaintops. As the days grew shorter and the air crisper, a shadow fell over the village. A strange sickness began to spread. It came quietly, like a fog, starting with a fever and a cough, and soon it stole the breath from those it touched. The village healer tried every herb and every remedy, but the sickness was relentless. Fear began to creep into the hearts of the villagers, replacing the usual peace with a quiet dread. One evening, Liam returned from the woods, not with a song on his lips, but with a weary slump in his shoulders. He felt a chill that had nothing to do with the autumn air. Elara nursed him with all the love and care she possessed. She brewed him teas from her garden, sang him gentle lullabies, and never left his side. She held his hand, whispering promises of their future, of the home they would build, and the children they would raise. But the fever climbed. Liam grew weaker with each passing day. He would look at Elara, his eyes full of a sorrow that broke her heart. He was not afraid for himself, but for her. He worried about leaving her alone. One night, under the pale light of a sliver moon, Liam's breathing became shallow. He pulled Elara close and made her a promise. "My love," he whispered, his voice barely a breath. "Even if I must leave this world, I will not leave you. Every night when the moon is high, listen. Listen for my footsteps on the path. I will come back to our willow tree. I will wait for you there, to watch over you." Elara wept, her tears falling onto his hand like raindrops. She begged him not to speak of leaving, but a deep, cold certainty had already settled in her soul. Before the sun rose the next morning, Liam was gone. The village mourned with her, but Elara's grief was a silent, hollow place that no one else could enter. The world had lost its color. Her songs had died in her throat. She would spend her days and days, the promises they had made echoing in her mind. But as night fell, she would remember his last words. Driven by a desperate hope, she wrapped a shawl around her shoulders and walked the familiar path to the old willow tree. The air was still and cold. The moon cast long, skeletal shadows through the bare branches. Elara sat on the cold ground, her back against the willow's ancient trunk, and she listened. She listened with every fiber of her being, straining to hear something, anything above the pounding of her own heart. At first there was only silence, a deep, empty silence that seemed to mock her. Doubt began to creep in. It was a foolish, grief-stricken idea. He was gone. But she stayed, clutching the smooth river stone he had given her. Then she heard it, faint at first. A soft crunching of leaves on the path. It was a slow, steady rhythm, the sound of someone walking deliberately. Her heart leapt. It was his walk. She knew it as well as she knew her own name. The footsteps grew closer, stopping just on the other side of the willow's curtain of branches. She couldn't see anything, but she could feel a presence, a gentle, familiar warmth that pushed back the night's chill. She didn't feel fear, only a profound sense of peace. He was here. He had kept his promise. Elara spoke into the darkness, her voice trembling. "Liam, is that you?" There was no reply, only a soft rustle of leaves like a sigh. She stayed there for hours, talking to him, telling him about her day, humming the tunes she could no longer bring herself to sing, and the presence remained, a silent, comforting companion. When the first light of dawn threatened the horizon, she felt the warmth recede, and the footsteps faded back down the path, growing fainter until they disappeared. Every single night, Elara returned to the willow tree, and every night, the footsteps would come. The villagers started to notice her nightly walks. They saw the change in her. The hollow look in her eyes was replaced by a quiet, secret light. They thought grief had unsettled her mind. They would see her sitting under the tree, talking to the empty air. They would hear her sometimes, humming a soft melody. They whispered among themselves, calling her the Willow Bride, forever waiting for a groom who would never arrive. But they were wrong. He did arrive. Every night. Years passed, the seasons turned, winters melted into springs, and Elara's hair began to streak with silver. She never loved another. Her heart belonged to the woodcutter in the woods, and to the faithful spirit who visited her each night. Her nightly vigils became a part of her, a sacred ritual that sustained her. The riverstone never left her pocket, its surface worn even smoother by the constant touch of her fingers. She grew old, but she was never truly lonely. One autumn evening, many years later, Elara felt a familiar weariness in her bones. She was old now, and her body was tired. She knew her time was coming to an end. That night, she walked the path to the willow tree one last time. The journey was slower, her steps less steady, but her heart was light. She sat in her usual spot, listening. The footsteps arrived, as they always did, steady and familiar. "Liam," she whispered, her voice frail as a dried leaf. "I'm tired now. I'm ready to come home." This time, something was different. The curtain of willow branches rustled, and a soft, shimmering light began to glow from behind them. A figure slowly stepped through, not solid like a living man, but formed of moonlight and memory. It was Liam. He looked just as he had the day he left, young and strong, his eyes filled with a love that had spanned decades of waiting. He smiled and held out his hand. Elara smiled back, a genuine, joyful smile that lit up her wrinkled face. The deep ache she had carried in her heart for so long finally dissolved. She reached out her own hand, her fingers closing around his. His touch was not cold, but warm, like the first sun of spring. Together they turned and walked away from the willow tree, not down the path to the village, but into the misty woods, their forms growing fainter and fainter until they merged with the moonlight and were gone. The next morning, the villagers found Elara beneath the willow tree. She was leaning against the trunk, a peaceful smile on her face. In her hand, she clutched a smooth grey riverstone. They buried her beside Liam, reuniting them in the earth as they were now reunited in spirit. And to this day, it is said that if you go to that ancient willow tree on a quiet, moonlit night, you can still hear them. You might hear the faint crunch of leaves, like two people walking together. You might hear the whisper of a soft melody on the wind, a song finally being sung again. It's the sound of a promise kept, a love that proves stronger than time, and a legend that continues to be told in the hush of the night. A reminder that some bonds can never be broken. Thank you for joining me for tonight's lecture. I hope this story brings you comfort and gentle dreams. Close your eyes, breathe deeply, and let the quiet of the night embrace you. Follow our channel for more tales to guide you into a peaceful sleep. Good night.